Hi guys, welcome back to my channel Lush Foliage. In today's video, we are going to be talking about this absolutely beautiful species of plant called as the Dracaenas. Now guys, there are over 100 varieties of Dracaenas. I probably have only 3 or 4 varieties. There are even more, but you can see the absolute beauty of this plant lies on the leaves. They are more known for their foliage. They come in different colors, greens, yellows with stripes, completely green in color, some with that maroon color, light green, dark green in color, and there are so many varieties. I would say if you want to make a small little setup only with Dracaenas, you can even do that because they come in different varieties and they look absolutely colorful. You don't even need flowers if you have such beautiful colorful foliage in your garden. Now let's talk a little bit in detail about the care tips, starting off with light. Now guys, ideally these plants can do well in direct sunlight as well, but it depends upon the size and the maturity of the plant. If you have a small plant like this, the ones that I have, now I give them around 3 to 4 hours of morning direct sunlight, which is very mild. After that, they get a good amount of indirect bright light. Now, if you have a very mature large plant, because some of these varieties will grow really large, that's when you can even offer around 5 to 6 hours of direct sunlight. But I would say just avoid the afternoon direct sunlight because a lot of times that can burn the leaves, because the leaves are very fragile. They can easily get burnt with direct sunlight. So the best option what you can do is give early morning direct sunlight for around 2 to 3 hours and then give a good amount of indirect bright light. Now these plants can be grown indoor as well, but a lot of times the colors don't appear very well because a lot of times indoor there is a very less amount of light. The intensity of light, indirect bright light, is very less. So if you're planning to grow them somewhere, either you can use a balcony or you can keep them near the windowsill wherein they receive a good amount of indirect bright light. Especially the red varieties would require a little bit more intensity of light. So ensure you're keeping them according to that. Now talking about the soil, I have used the basic soil, which is a mix of coco peat, garden soil and sand. They prefer a slight even moisture in the soil but not soggy wet soil. Ensure the container that you're using has a drain hole so that the excess water can drain out. The garden soil is going to give the basic nutrients and sand is going to make the soil mix well draining because they prefer loose, porous and well draining soil mix. Talking about watering, these are not drought tolerant. If you're not going to water them, they will start to dry out and they will start getting a lot of brown leaves. So ensure you're keeping a close watch. Whenever you see around 1 to 2 inches of the upper layer of soil is dry, go ahead and do a complete watering until the water starts passing through the drain hole. Now watering is a subject that I'll leave it up to you because everyone has a very different environment. They have a very different soil mix. So it all depends upon that. If you are from a very dry environment, give a little bit more frequent watering. And if you're from a very humid environment, reduce the amount of watering. Again, the watering also changes as per the season. You cannot have the same watering schedule throughout the year. So this watering subject is something that I leave up to you. Now talking about propagation, it is very simple to propagate Dracaenas. You can always do a stem cutting. They always tend to put out a lot of offshoots. They always tend to put out stems. You can always do a stem cutting. Some of the varieties like Dracaena, the Song of India, tends to branch out. You can even cut the branches as well and propagate them. Not all varieties of Dracaenas will branch out. Some will have only one single stem that is going to grow really tall. I'll put up an image if I can find one. And some of them will start to branch out. So it all depends upon the variety that you have. Now talking about pest issues, yes, they do get affected with spider mites more often than mealybugs. Always do a routine check, turn the leaves and check. The moment you see even a little bit of infestation, take care of it at the early stage. Do not let it reach into an infestation because then it becomes very difficult to get rid of it. Always remember guys, the earlier you notice and you treat it at the early stage, the much better. Talking about temperature and humidity, they are not very fussy about humidity, but of course if there is going to be a good amount of humidity, that is going to work out really well and in the favor of the plant. But anything above 50-55% of humidity is going to work out really well. Talking about temperature, anywhere between 15 degrees Celsius up to 34-35 degrees Celsius is going to work out really well. Especially the mature plants, they are even more kind of hardy and can acclimate very well. Smaller plants will take a little bit of time. Smaller plants are a little delicate, but as and when the plant starts to mature, it becomes even more strong. Now talking about, is this plant toxic? Now ideally this plant is only toxic to pets like cats and dogs. It is not toxic to humans, but it is not recommended to eat the leaves because the leaves do contain a chemical called as saponins. Now guys, just because it's mentioned that it's non-toxic to humans, it doesn't mean that you can go and take a bite of the leaves. As I said, it does contain a chemical, so it's better you keep this plant away from the reach of small children and pets. Other than that, it's an absolutely easy, non-fussy plant. If you are a beginner, you can definitely add this plant in your collection. As I said, the basic requirements are that you have to offer a good amount of light, whether morning mild sunlight or indirect bright light. Do not expose it to afternoon direct sunlight and maintain a slight amount of moisture. Fertilizers, I would say it's not a very heavy feeding plant, but do not add fertilizers during the winter season. Summer is their growing period. You can add fertilizers during that. Probably once in 15 days or once in month, you can use a liquid fertilizer, and that is going to work out really well. Apart from that, it does not require a lot of care. It is not a very difficult plant, especially for beginners. So if you're looking out for a foliage that has this beautiful color, I would say you can definitely make a small arrangement only out of these plants, because as I said, there are around 100 varieties of Dracaenas, and you can completely transform your garden or the corner of your house with this beautiful foliage. You don't even need flowering plants to complete your garden, because a lot of times people find it a little difficult to grow flowering plants. So you can kind of substitute that with colorful foliage plants, and it's going to work out really well. They do not have a said requirement of pot. They will do well in any kind of pot, but this is something, again, I leave it up to you, because it all depends upon what size of plant you have. If you have a larger plant, of course you'll have to go with a larger pot. If you have a smaller plant, go with a smaller pot. If you're making a large arrangement, if you have a very large pot and you have a lot of Dracaenas, then of course you can make a beautiful arrangement, again keeping in mind that the size of the pot should not be very big, because remember, when the size of the pot is very big, it means that there is going to be a lot of soil. If there is a lot of soil, there is going to be a lot of moisture. The plant does need even or slight amount of moisture, not excess moisture. Excess moisture will damage any plant root, so always be careful. Go according to the size of the pot. Even if you use a smaller pot, that's absolutely fine. You can always transfer it to a larger pot. But if you have already transferred it to a larger pot and it's then having issues of root rot, then it is very difficult to revive any kind of plant. So to be on the safer side, always go with a smaller pot. As and when the plant starts to grow, then you can go with the next size of pot. Because a lot of times I have seen people tend to share their images, and I tend to see that the plant is almost 1/4 of its size and the pot is almost 5 to 6 times bigger than the plant, and that is what causes damage to your plant. So be extremely careful. There is no harm in going with a smaller pot. A safe size of pot is going to be anywhere between 5 to 6 inches of a pot. That is what most of my pots are, and that has been working out really well. So guys, that's all about it. I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button, and if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe, and keep planting.